Ms Poa is moving a motion to suspend Mr Iswaran solely in order to cut off his MP allowance. Mr Speaker, this gives rise to some concern as to how this House should exercise its powers. We should make decisions on the basis of generally applicable principles and not on individual cases in isolation. We are being asked to suspend a member. The suspension of an MP is a serious matter. If done, it must be done in accordance with the law and on the right principles. We need to know on what basis the suspension is sought. What threshold or criterion for suspension is the NCMP relying on? And what are the principles that lead Ms Poa to propose suspending Mr Iswaran at this point of time? Ms Poa is calling for the suspension of Mr Iswaran. What is the principle that Ms Poa is advocating in calling for his suspension? Is it that he is under investigation? If so, then her proposal should cover all MPs being investigated. At the moment, there are 3 members of Parliament under investigation: Mr Iswaran, Mr Pritam Singh, and Mr Faisal Manap. Regarding Mr Singh and Mr Manap, members will recall that this House had referred Mr Singh and Mr Manap to the public prosecutor following the outcome of the Committee of Privileges inquiry into the complaint against Ms Raisa Khan. Notwithstanding that they are under investigation, they have not been suspended. Is Ms Poa calling for their suspension as well? If not, then why not? The outcome of the investigation is not yet known. We simply do not have sufficient material to make an informed decision at the present time. As such, Mr Speaker, it is premature to take any action with regard to Mr Iswaran at this stage, and doing so would be to prejudge the outcome of the investigation. It would be better to wait for the outcome of the investigation before deciding what to do. That would put us in a better position to assess the right and fair course of action. Mr Speaker, at the end of the day, it is important that we deal with situations like these objectively and dispassionately. We should not attempt to exploit such situations for political ends, but rather to do the right thing at the right time.
The main goal of my private member's bill is to empower Parliament to authorise the back payment of the allowance of an MP who has been suspended from the service of Parliament by resolution. The Prime Minister said that it was not within his discretion to cut the MP allowance. To do that, it must be done through a motion in Parliament to suspend the member from the service of Parliament. Hence, PSP decided to file the motion to suspend Minister Iswaran. How is this case different from others as to warrant a suspension? Firstly, he is no longer performing his duties as a Member of Parliament, whether in Parliament or in his constituency. The Prime Minister has made the decision to place Minister Iswaran on leave of absence in both his capacity as Minister as well as MP. While we do not have the details of the investigation that the Prime Minister is privy to, we believe the Prime Minister must have good reasons to do so. So in effect, Minister Iswaran has been fully suspended from his MP duties, but not from his MP allowance. We are not advocating that any MP who is under investigation should be suspended. That would indeed be unfair and setting the bar too low. Anyone can lodge a complaint and an investigation will be triggered. Out of the many cases investigated, a much smaller number would result in an arrest, as had happened with Minister Iswaran. We do, however, maintain that an MP or minister who is under investigation for corruption and suspended from official duties should be put on no-pay leave until the investigation or criminal case is concluded and will only receive back pay if they are subsequently cleared by the investigation or criminal case.
Ms Poa has limited it quite carefully to corruption, can I ask Ms Poa, is it her view then that if an MP is under investigation for murder or for rape, then suspension should not apply?
I have not thought about those other cases. It is not my intention to set out the rules under which members can be suspended. I am merely looking at a case in point where I feel there is a strong case for suspension. As to setting out generic rules, I believe that there will be somebody in government or leader of the House that is in charge of that.
Insofar as Ms Poa's and PSP's position is concerned, what does concern me greatly is that it does not, her motion and the move to suspend Minister Iswaran does not appear to come from a place of principle, specifically at any member of this House. Think about what kind of parliament that would be. What would be the standards of integrity of such a parliament? What would be the sense of fairness? And how would people regard this House if we did something like that? Thresholds have been crossed, and if warranted and merited, we will do something. As to what exactly we will have to do, well, we'll have to see what happens, but I've said quite plainly that we will certainly consider a clawback and also think how to do it. So I hope that that sets members' minds at rest, because if we don't suspend him today, it does not mean that you cannot do so in the future. If you do suspend him today, you're effectively saying that he has done something wrong when there is no basis at the present time. There may well be later, we don't know, but at the present time, it will be premature and prejudging the issue.
This amendment gives Parliament the flexibility to decide whether suspended member should be paid the allowance, whether in full or in part. Without this flexibility, Parliament is hampered in taking timely disciplinary actions. If we're unable to back pay and we have to uphold the principle of innocent until proven guilty, it means that we cannot suspend any MP until the entire legal process has been completed. This may be a long period of time. We are in fact being held to ransom due to the lack of provision to back pay. Regardless of Parliament's decision on Minister Iswaran, we believe that the amendment should still be passed. PSP feels that adopting a harsher stand against corruption versus other wrongdoing is fair. Given the extremely high salaries we are paying ministers to stay corruption-free. Since we're paying such extraordinary high salaries, isn't it fair for the consequence of corruption and the handling process of its investigation to be correspondingly tougher? PSP urged the House to suspend Minister Iswaran and to back pay him if and when he is cleared of all wrongdoing. We have explained why our approach leads to better use of taxpayers' money while making sure that Minister Iswaran is not penalized should he be found innocent. This is in line with our idea of being firm and fair.